Kobe, LeBron, Lowry. And that's why I'm in medical school. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out another video here today at NXTgenMD. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Gianluca and I'm going to be a first-year medical student starting up at McMaster University tomorrow. Now, some of you are going to be watching that and you're going to be like, Gianluca, what are you doing filming a video the day before medical school? Shouldn't you be focusing on enjoying your last day of freedom pretty much ever? To those of you, I just want to say that if there's one thing that I learned in my undergrad, it's that hard work pays off. And I was working hard for the last few years and I have no intention of stopping that anytime soon. So basically what we're doing at this channel, for those of you that are new, we're talking about fitness, we're talking about motivation, we're talking about medical school, the medical field in general, and just anything else that we can to make everyone have a good time, okay? I want to build a nice, inclusive community here where everyone can come and leave comments and get some advice on whatever's going on in their life. Now today, specifically though, we're talking about the University of Ottawa's medical school and more importantly, how you could apply and get into the school hopefully this cycle. Now, before I get into all that, I just want to throw up a quick disclaimer really quickly. I do not go to the University of Ottawa. I've never actually been there myself. I did an interview there, and furthermore, I do not represent the university in any way, shape, or form. All of the information that we talk about here is going to have been released directly from the university themselves, and I'm going to go ahead and link all of the information below in the description box, along with some timestamps in case you just want to skip ahead to a different part of the video. If I'm going over something that you already know about, feel free to jump ahead and we'll see you in a little bit. Now let's start off with a little bit of information about the university and the program itself. So the University of Ottawa's medical program is a 4-year traditional style program where clerkship is actually going to begin starting in year 3, just like a few of the other schools that we've already talked about here. Now, one super cool thing about the University of Ottawa, especially for a few of you guys, is that the MCAT is not required when you are applying to the university for their medical program, okay? They had introduced the MCAT during 1 year in the past, I think it was 2016, but actually since then, and especially for this cycle, as of the 2019-2020 cycle, you do not need to take the MCAT if you are going to be applying to the University of Ottawa's medical program. Now, on top of that, another cool thing is that there are 2 separate streams of the medical program when it comes to the University of Ottawa. There's going to be the English-speaking stream, and then there's also going to be the Francophone or the French-speaking stream, given that the university is in Ottawa, and the French language definitely is something that's going to be very useful if you're going to be spending a lot of time in Ottawa. Now, let's get into the numbers, okay? Because like all of the other universities, the medical school programs here in Ontario, the University of Ottawa is going to be one of the very competitive schools to get into. And what we see from last year is that something around, so we actually saw that 4,269 students applied to the medical program, and then only 169 of those students were able to get in. That was the final class size. So what we're seeing is that there's a final acceptance rate of somewhere around like a 3.9%, 3.95, so it is a very competitive university to get into. Now, out of that 169 applicants in total that get into the program, it's going to be broken up so that 48 of those applicants last year ended up in their French stream, and then the other 118 ended up in their English stream. Now, a great question that you're probably asking yourself is, can I apply to both? Can I apply to the English stream and the French stream? Now, as far as I know, in the information that they put on their website, you could only choose one of the 2 streams when applying to the University of Ottawa. And before you go ahead and think that you're going to throw yourself into the Francophone speaking side of the program because you took 2 French courses at the university level, I would heavily reconsider that because your skills and your proficiency in the language definitely needs to be basically fluent if you're going to want to go ahead and proceed through the program at the same level as everyone else. Now, one more thing that I want to say about the University of Ottawa when we're talking about their program at a glance is that they're actually partnered with quite a few hospitals when it comes to teaching hospitals and for their students in clerkship. But you could go ahead and look up all those hospitals on their website. I just chose a few over here, so I'm going to say them right now. Now, excuse my French pronunciation, I'm not the best when it comes to this, but some of the hospitals that they are partnered with are the Bruyère Continuing Care Center, There is the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, there's the Ottawa Hospital, the Royal Hospital, and then Hôpital Montfort. Now, as far as how you're going to actually get into the University of Ottawa's medical program, just like all of the other medical schools here in Ontario, there's two sides of the application. Now, the first one, this is going to be the pre-interview part of the application, where you're going to apply via the OMSAS application service, and there are a few things that are specific to Ottawa that we're going to go over regarding that application. And then there is the post part of where you actually get the interview, right? So once you've been invited for an interview and you go in, then the interview is going to be in person at the Ottawa campus itself. Now, as far as how the University of Ottawa is going to select which candidates proceed to the interview part of the application, that's going to be based on three different factors only. And that is your weighted GPA, that's going to be in accordance with Ottawa's formulas that they have. And then it's also going to be based on your autobiographical sketch. We're going to talk about that too, but not the references, just the ABS. And then finally, it's going to be based on your score from the CASPer Test. One of the first things that we need to talk about regarding the pre-interview part of the application is eligibility, right? Who is even eligible to apply to the medical program at U of O? Now, as far as their eligibility is concerned, they state that you need to have completed 3 years of full-time studies. Doesn't matter what the actual program was, but you need the 3 years of full-time studies in an undergraduate program by the time that school would start, right? So that's normally that. So you could apply after second year, right, while you're in third year, but by the end of that third year, you would need to have completed 3 years of full-time studies by the June cutoff point. Now, the way that U of O is going to define full-time studies is basically 5 one-semester courses per semester that you're enrolled in your undergrad. Now, for example, let's say one of the questions that some of you may have is that what if one semester you drop one of the courses and then you only had 4 courses in that semester, and then the following semester you had 5. So you see that we got 4 in the first and 5 in the second for that year. In that case, the University of Ottawa says that if you took an additional course during the summertime, you would then be able to meet that requirements, kind of make it so that you did take 5 in total for the year per semester, and then you're good meeting the requirements. However, just keep in mind that the courses that you do take in the summertime are only used to meet prerequisites. They're not going to be used in the GPA calculations that we're about to talk about right now. Now, because the University of Ottawa has no MCAT requirements at all for their program, what we're going to see, unfortunately, is that the GPA cutoffs that they're going to use in order for you to get into the program are going to be exuberantly high, especially compared to a lot of the other universities. Now, specifically in terms of how you're going to go ahead and calculate Ottawa's weighted GPA, what they're going to go ahead and do is take the last 3 years of study that you've been in an undergraduate program and only count those. And then each of those years aren't worth the same. They're worth different values, and we're going to see that in a second. But for example, in terms of taking the last 3 years, let's say that you had completed 4 years of an undergraduate study program, right? Year 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then what they're going to do is they're only going to include your final 3 years, which is year 4, year 3, year 2, and no matter what you got in that first year, the mark doesn't actually count. You could go ahead and use the first year courses to meet some of their requirements, but it's not going to affect your weighted GPA at all. Now, I think the easiest way to go ahead and explain how the weighted GPA calculation at the University of Ottawa works is to give you a little example. So like I said before, they only take the final 3 years that are full-time study in your academic career. So the example that I'm going to give you is, let's say I took 5 years of full-time study at my university. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to put all the numbers on the board. In this example, I'm going to have that my first year was a 2.89, my second year was a 3.87, my third year was a 3.96, my fourth year was a 3.84, and then finally my fifth year was a 3.96. Now the first thing we're going to do for this example is the last 2 years of my GPA, regardless of what they were, are going to be dropped right away. We do not care about those anymore. If we met some course requirements with those years, great. If not, just forget about them entirely. Now for the final 3 years, we're going to see that as we near closer and closer to the date of our application, so for example for this, our fifth year is going to be the heaviest in terms of the weight that's been assigned to it. So we're going to give this a value of 3. Now the year right before that, where I got a 3.84, is going to be weighted the second heaviest. We're going to give this a value of 2. And then the year right before that, we're going to give a value of 1. Now that's basically how it works. The year right before that you apply is weighted the heaviest, and then the 3 years prior to that, 2 years prior to that, is going to be weighted the least heavy. Now what you do is you multiply each of these GPAs in every single year by their respective factors. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Multiply them all up. Then you add them together, and then finally you're going to go ahead and divide that number by 6 for a final GPA, in this case of a 3.92. Now feel free to go ahead and ask me some questions if you need some clarification of that, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty clear regarding how you're going to find out your own weighted GPA for the University of Ottawa. Finally, one more very, very important thing regarding the eligibility as to who is allowed to apply to the University of Ottawa. Even though there is no required specific undergrad course that you do need to take, like U of T, Ottawa does have some courses that they need you to take if you want to be eligible to apply to their MD program. Now what you're going to need to have to do, so go ahead and write these down if you want, is they say 6 units in a humanities or social science course. Now the 6 units is going to be basically 2 one-semester courses, right? A one-semester course is going to account for 3 units when we're going through this. Now it's also going to say that you need to take 6 units in a biology or a physiology course, so again 2 courses there. You need 3 units in an organic chemistry course. You need 3 units in a regular chemistry course. You need another 3 units in a biochemistry course, and then finally you need 3 units in a statistics course, okay? Now these are the required courses, but furthermore, not only do you need to complete these courses, but you need a grade of a B according to their website in each of these courses in order to make it in to the program. Now let's say that you want to apply this year, but you don't have all of your prerequisites yet and you're still going back to school. That's fine, but you do need to complete the prerequisite courses with at least a B within that few months before the school starts, and that's not in the summertime. So for example, let's say our OMSAS applications are due October 1st. You could still go ahead and apply even without completing all of the prerequisites, but you need to have them done by the end of that year of studies if you want to be eligible for admittance into their program. So how is the GPA used now for the University of Ottawa? So just like for Queen's University, what we're going to see is that there's multiple different stages where it's used. And first, you're going to have to go ahead and meet the GPA cutoff like we talked about before, for the particular year that you're applying in. Now what we're going to see is that University of Ottawa says that every year the GPA cutoff is subject to change based on how many people have applied that year and the strength of their applicants. However, specific to Ottawa is that if you want to know what the cutoff was for the year that you applied, even though they don't list it on their website, they say that you could go ahead and call them and ask specifically what the cutoff was for the year that you went ahead and applied in. Now according to some of the forums in the past, this cutoff has kind of went back and forth between around a 3.88 or a 3.9, and this also varies depending on whether or not you take the English stream or the French stream. Also, according to some of the forums, they seem to say that some of the wGPA cutoffs in the past they tend to be a little bit lower for the Francophone stream than for the English stream in general. Now, the second part of your pre-interview stage of your application is going to be that you write the CASPer Test. Now, the CASPer Test is a 90-minute test. I just made a very informative video on the subject, and at the risk of tooting my own horn a little bit too much, I think that it's probably the most informative video about CASPer in the entirety of YouTube. So I encourage you to go ahead and check out that video yourself if you want to learn more. One of the things that I will say is that because the MCAT is not required for the University of Ottawa, it's my own opinion and some of the other people that I talk to that Ottawa also really values this CASPer test, and it is something that I highly recommend that you prepare for. Now, one final note about the CASPer test for the University of Ottawa is that they state that you have to go ahead and write that test in the language of instruction that you've chosen according to your OMSAS application. So in other words, if you sign up for the Francophone program because you think it might be a little bit easier to get into that program, and then your French skills are not where they need to be, you're going to have a very difficult time writing that CASPer test in a language that you're not familiar with. Now, finally, the third part of the pre-interview section of your application is, of course, the autobiographical sketch. Now, I've touched upon this in the past, but basically what it is that you're going to have to fill out the 32 entries for the different activities in a variety of different categories according to what OMSAS is asking for. Now, they're looking for extracurricular activities, they're looking for work experience, they're looking for research, other volunteers, just things like that. You're going to go ahead and fill it all out. Now, my two unofficial recommendations regarding filling out your autobiographical sketch, and specifically for Ottawa, because I know from a lot of the people that I've seen get into the school that they definitely value the extracurricular part of your application. Now, my two words of advice is, number one, Ottawa is a very research-heavy university. They really do a lot of great research regarding the field of biomedical science and everything else. So if you can, try your hardest to highlight your research experiences that you gained throughout your undergrad or your master's or whatever you were able to do. And on that same token, basically, another thing that you want to do is spread your experiences out over across all of the different sections. Ottawa, like many other universities, is going to value your experiences in each of the sections listed on OMSAS. Now, for that reason, because you only have 32 spaces to fill out information, you want to evenly divide your experiences as broadly as possible. That way you could score as many different points in each of these in the sections. Now, that's not an official thing that they say on there. That's just my own experiences and then some of the things I've heard from my friends that were successful in getting into the University of Ottawa. Now for the actual interview part of your application. If you guys have gotten an application at the University of Ottawa and you're watching this video in retrospect, right, looking back, then congratulations. Let me just congratulate you on all your accomplishments so far, but it's not over yet, right? Basically, the way you get an interview at the University of Ottawa is that every year they're going to go ahead and get their applications, they're 4,200 plus, and then they're going to go and, assuming that you've met all their cutoffs for the weighted GPA, they're going to add your score from each of the 3 different sections, and then they're going to stack all the applicants up, and they're going to invite the top around 575 applicants to interview at the university in Ottawa. Now, there's not much information that I could find on their website, unfortunately, regarding the interviews. And like I've said in the past, the medical school interviews are definitely one of the more secretive parts of the application process because they make us sign a whole bunch of NDAs about the things that we've talked about and the way that it works. But I do know, after speaking to a few different students regarding the matter, that supposedly the Ottawa interview is a traditional panel-style interview. It's not the MMI like at McMaster or like we're starting to see more at Queen's. And one other thing about the interviews at Ottawa, from some of my friends that I've spoken to in the past that have interviewed there, the general consensus that I'm getting is that it seems to be one of the more difficult panel style of interviews that you're going to come across. So always make sure, everyone, that you start practicing for your interviews well in advance. I started prepping for mine as soon as I got the notification that I had some interviews this year. And you know what, in the future, closer to the time where the interview invites go out in around the beginning to end of January, I'm going to go ahead and make a video, I promise, on how you could prepare and how you could do well at the medical school interviews. Now, after the interview is done, your score is going to be assigned by the University of Ottawa. You are never going to see the score, but then in May, the offers are going to go out as to who made it into the program based off of the score only from your weighted GPA and your interview score. Those are the only 2 things that are considered into actually who makes it into the University of Ottawa's final class. Now, what happens is, based on those 2 things, they're going to generate what they call a rank list. Based off of everyone that went to the interview that year, they're going to number you from either all the way at the bottom to the very highest scoring applicant. Now, once Ottawa has generated that rank list, the top 169 students on that list, now again, that's for their Francophone and their English-speaking program, are going to be given offers. And then, unfortunately, a lot of people are also going to be given rejections on the day when the decisions come out in May. And then finally, a lot of the students are going to be given a waitlist offer as well. Now, the way a waitlist works, I've talked about this in the past, is that basically as the students at the top of the rank list, sometimes sometimes a lot of them will turn down their offers to one school in favor of another school. Now, as that starts happening, spaces in the class are going to open up and people are going to be slowly pulled off the waitlist. But Ottawa specifically, one of the things that they do, from what I've heard, is that they give you some sort of indication as to where you are on the waitlist, so that you know whether or not you should just look forward to the next application cycle, or if you should hold on to some hope regarding that you might actually be pulled off. Now, one thing that's very unique to the University of Ottawa, or maybe it's not, but they actually list it right on their website, I've never seen that for any of the other universities, is that unfortunately, applicants that have had 3 opportunities to interview at the University of Ottawa's medical program will no longer be considered for future applications. And you know, sometimes the interview process could be really difficult for some of the applicants, and for that reason this is really going to go ahead and really put some time constraints on you getting into the school. So always make sure that you treat every opportunity to interview at a medical school with the utmost priority, because that's what it needs. Because like for the University of Ottawa here, after 3 times you can no longer apply to the school. Now, one final thing that I want to say regarding the direction that this channel is heading in, right? I'm having so much fun here, but I want to expand it as well. So these videos are going to keep going, but then I'm also going to be starting a segment once I'm in school called Red Cross Sticky Notes, where every week, and first of all, that's my name, I thought of that, so if you're another medical student out there thinking of stealing that segment, okay, run it by me first. Or every single week, I'm going to be going over, in a 5-minute short clip, something interesting that I learned at school that week for everyone out there that wants to go ahead and see it. And then the other thing that I'm going to start doing is another segment called Mr. Hyde, where I'm going to be doing some fitness stuff and just everything that I do so that I enjoy myself while I'm at medical school. And then the vlogs are coming as well. There's just going to be so much going on, and I can't wait. Okay, so I got one more school to talk about. That's the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, and then I'm going to start doing all this other stuff too. I hope everyone's having a great day out there. Subscribe, comment, like, all that fun stuff. And everyone just take it easy. Have a great day.